You see here, kid? You gotta just go for it. Don't think about what comes after or what came before. You just gotta bend your knees, take a deep breath, and jump. And you might think, what if I fall? Well, what if you don't? What if you fly?
Switching command to internal.
From the Collaborative Studios, Open the Eye, where metaphysical, paranormal, and the unexplained meet. Open the Eye with Tanya Tyler.
You've probably heard the three words, mind, body, and spirit. These words years ago used to have a stigma of being woo-woo, new age, way out there. But these days, more and more mainstream brands are using these in their marketing slogans to catch your attention. According to an overall Google SEO marketing search, Google processes approximately 100,000 search queries every second for having one or more of these words in it. And these are mostly related to health and wellness ads. Now, from the Monroe Institute about the mind, body, spirit, these aspects of a person combined to give them identity, determine their health, and make them who they are. Being in this conscious world, we need to connect all of those parts, mind, body, spirit. The mind needs to be healthy, the body needs to be healthy, and the spirit needs to be healthy for us to become whole, for us to become one. And one might always be a little off kilter. And that is why it is so important to have practitioners in this world that understand and can help us take care of those parts, help us grow, help us learn. Alaira Godwin, owner of Body Insight, LLC, is a licensed massage therapist here in Texas, certified lymphedema therapist, and energy practitioner. She is a jack of all trades, is what I say. Alaira, thanks for being here. Talk about the first time you remember having an experience that was different, like some sort of energy.
Well, I was brought up in, going to church. So for me, I was looking at my fourth grade teacher who I did not like. She was very exacting and she was mean, and I saw this massive bit of light around her head, just brilliant. And I interpreted that as a halo. And I remember thinking, oh, maybe she's good. So,
how could this mean person be good? But she had a halo. What color was the halo?
It was just light. I don't tend to see the colors as well. Sometimes I'll intuit them, but I don't see the way that some clairvoyants will actually see. Sometimes I will hear things, so I'm a little clairaudient, and mostly it's just kind of a sense of inner knowing. I'm not familiar with the whole human design chart, but someone did mine for me, and apparently that shows up in my human design. We've all got something. I'm just very fortunate in that I chose a career path where I get to really do a deep dive into this stuff. If you've got a corporate job or if you've got, an appearance you need to keep up in your community, sometimes we're a little hesitant to explore these things, but I've found it fascinating from early on.
So you're in fourth grade, you're seeing this halo with your fourth grade teacher that you're not a fan of. Where did you realize that maybe it was an aura? Were you older?
Sometime within the next year or two, there was an article in the local paper, had an article about children reporting seeing light around people's heads and shooting out of their fingers. And there was some kind of study going on with it. I kept that article for a couple of years until maybe I was in 6th grade, 7th grade. I don't remember much about it, but I remember telling my mother, and oh no, that's not there. And that's what they said in the article, is children see these things, but as we have more experience in the world, we tend to get a little focused on what we can see with our conventional eyes, and we lose those abilities or we shut them down.
Is that what the article basically said?
I believe that's what it was suggesting, is that children outgrow this because they're told, oh, no, that's not there. And most of us, when an authority figure tells us, when we're little anyway, sometimes when we're adults, we still listen to the authority figures constantly. Oh, that's not there? Okay, I don't see it then. I'm just imagining things. And we blow it off.
That's where our belief system comes in as children, that we are designed to believe what they're telling us. And it's amazing now because we would see something like this, be excited that our children are seeing these things. But back in the day, we're, don't do that. You figured out that it was aura. Did you start to feel where I need to put my hands on someone? You were 19.
I was busy going about my life. Friends was complaining about her knees, which anyone who has been, wearing high heels, dancing all night, your knees hurt the next morning. And I just put my hands on her knees and my hands heated up and her eyes flew open. She said, "Oh my God, I can feel that." Years later, maybe a year or two later, someone had suggested that after I do that, I put my hands on like an old clock radio or something that, in those days we had clock radios, something that was broken so I wouldn't take the energy into myself. But it never felt like I was drawing out and bringing into myself. But it was interesting advice to get from someone who obviously was also putting their hands on and doing something that we don't know how to describe because our culture doesn't generally have language for it.
So you put your hands on someone. Did you go into Reiki after this?
Few years later, I did get Reiki attuned, and I did not continue doing Reiki. My Reiki master and I had very different approaches to certain ethical issues, and I think that that's part of why during the year or two that I was offering Reiki, I felt like I was a little less effective. I believe that Reiki definitely is a potent force. Universal energy is what it translates to. And so it's just how do you come by it? And Reiki is one of the ways that people are able to tap into that. But it is lineage-based, at least the way I was taught. I was told it was lineage-based. And because I had moral objections to some of the actions of my teacher, that made it that made that pathway a little less clear for me to be able to transmit because I was conflicted. The way that I view things, and my apologies to every ethical Reiki practitioner out there, and 90% of them are, maybe 95, who knows. I have friends who are amazing Reiki practitioners and get great results. It's universal energy. And again, the way that we tap into that is going to be different for every person because we're all wired a little bit differently. We all can tap into source energy. That's what I suspect that I'm doing. That's my intention. So, of course, there are people who don't want energy work in their sessions, and sometimes we'll be very clear about that for whatever reason. That's fine. But I want to acknowledge that some people do think that it's, from the devil or whatever, and, you have to get your energy work through God, and that's fine if that's where they're at, and I'm going to respect that if someone is in my office and doesn't want energy work.
You have a lot of modalities in your bag of tricks. Let's talk about some of those modalities that you kind of dabbled into and why you like them and where you are now. So tell me a little bit about those modalities.
Okay, well, I went into massage school in 98. I left a corporate job and decided to go into a career that I really wanted. Did a lot of research on this, and massage was recommended.
What were you doing in corporate America?
I was investigating utility theft for Baltimore Gas and Electric. So
wow, you were really into corporate America.
It was a very interesting. I used to joke I was dealing with liars, cheats, and thieves all the time, and the customers were even worse. Which is, no offense to those in the utility industry either, but it was a real education in what goes on for people who are in a very different socioeconomic status than I was in.
How long did you stay there?
I had been brought in as a temp, and then they hired me full time. As an employee. And so I believe it was a total of 7 years, might have been 8.
So you're in corporate America. And then where's that shift that says, you know what, I'm kind of done doing what I'm doing and now I want to go into energy work? Is there that moment that the light bulb went off?
I had always been a little dissatisfied with my day job, but I had also been raised that that's what you do. You have a 9-to-5 job. And that was the way that I looked at the world. We had downsizing back in the 90s. Then they started calling it right sizing. Now I think they call it reduction in force, whatever it is.
Layoffs.
Yes. Yeah. My unit of 5 went down to just me, and they were talking about another round of layoffs. So I looked around and I said, there's a target painted on my back. Maybe I should figure out what I want to do. I looked at being a hospice worker, thought that I might burn out too quickly. So did not go into that. I would have loved to have been a ballroom dance instructor. That was my hobby at the time, but I'm a klutz, all right? So that didn't make it. And then massage was another possibility. Those were my top three, and I looked into each of them, and massage I took an intro course, and that was it. I knew that massage therapy was my pathway because I could blend the intuitive work and the energy work with being very scientific and anatomically based. And that really works well for me because I love facts and figures and information and what I can get my hands on.
When did you start jumping into more modalities? You're a massage therapist. Like, when did all this shift for you, that part?
I don't think that I can really separate energy work from massage because we have energy fields all around us. Our subtle bodies are much larger than our physical bodies. And even you're several feet away from me and we're still in each other's energy right now. Yeah, it's hard to separate. I can deliberately say I am going to contain myself and not, only interact with this person on the tangible level that I need to. But when there's an energetic opening, we're constantly blending with other people. At least that's the way that I experience.
Well, let me ask you this question because I was just reading this last night. And when you talked about auras earlier, I am reading a book on auras. Yesterday, I was practicing with my son, who's 9, to see his auras. And so I was able to see his auras. When he left the white wall, I could still see the energy there and it tripped me out. It was bright purple. It talked about being protecting yourself from picking up other people's negative energy in this book. Do you have to do that when you're a massage therapist, or do you do that on an everyday basis?
I think we all need to be discerning in where we're blending with other people. When I go into a session, I generally take a moment and really make sure that my vertical alignment is intact and that I'm in my center, and then enter the room. And after sessions, I have my little routine of cleaning the room and cleaning my own area. So
you're really protecting your area and yourself as you go in on an everyday basis. Like, you came here to the studio. Do you protect yourself when you're out?
I'm not as diligent about that as I was earlier in life, but I suspect that part of that is I've just gotten used to trying to return to vertical alignment constantly.
Tell me about that.
So we have these energy flows in our bodies. And the primary one, as I was taught, is through our spinal cord, up and down, through our body, heaven to earth alignment, basically. And then our alignments with other people tend to flip horizontal. They tend to go heart to heart, or sometimes, other chakras to other chakras. I think we've all experienced that sexual chakra energy with someone else. You just sort of, that's
brown chicken, brown cow. I'm joking.
But all of us have had those experiences where there's some kind of connection, and people who focus on energy work tend to, oh, there it is, as opposed to someone else might just be, oh, there's something there I'm interested in this person for whatever reason. Is it a mental connection? Is it a heart connection? Is it a power connection? But the vertical alignment is our initial. And when we're solid in our vertical alignment, then it's easier to flip into the horizontal with other people and not get pulled off center.
Okay, so this is called vertical alignment. Is this something that you learned through your journey through life?
Yes. It was one of the teachings of soul support systems. I know you spoke with my friend Dottie a little while ago, and she and I both went through many, many trainings and experiences with that group.
Go into vertical alignment a little bit.
That's the energy that's, up and down through our spinal cord. It aligns with if you've seen traditional depictions of chakras, I think most of us have, they're easily searchable on the internet. Those are also in a line. We also have the other ones that are above and the connection below. But yeah, I recommend that people, stand if they can, or sit if they need to, but having the feet on the ground. Any grounding exercises that you can find, again, internet, whatever pathway works for you. Some people will say there's a right way to do this stuff. It's what works for you. But to feel grounded and sort of centered, if you're standing, it can be interesting to play around with your balance a little bit, lean forward, lean back, really find where you feel solid. To get in touch with yourself, one of the easiest ways to do that is to just feel into your body out loud if you possibly can. Say something that you know to be true. My name is Alaira. How does that feel in my body? And then tell yourself a lie. I'm a black man. I'm a white woman. So how does saying that I'm of another gender and race feel in my body? It doesn't feel like my name does. And so that's just getting a baseline for what's true, what's false, and getting used to that feeling of what's true. If you're able to track energy, and some people sort of feel a buzzing, you can follow it. The way I experience it, it goes up and down constantly. First, I tend to notice one little area, going up and going way up there and coming back down and through my body and out my feet and down into the earth. Eventually, you can get to where you can track more than one. And it's an amazing kind of flow that you can feel through the body. And just talking about it, I notice it kind of amplifying in my own body. Most of the time, I'm walking around not tracking this stuff because, life is complex and you're driving a car. It's probably not a good time to be tracking your energy lines.
Alaira Godwin, owner of Body Insight LLC, licensed massage therapist, certified lymphedema therapist, energy practitioner. So this is a great way for you as a person to connect to the energy inside yourself, because once we understand how to use our own energy, then we're able to maybe start moving it towards other people in some sense.
Well, I think that when we're really in line with our energy, we tend to connect with other people just automatically. We're very social creatures. I think that when our energy is really solid, we tend to attract people who are a better fit for us in that state. Whereas when we're not in touch with our own energy, we might be prone to just sort of connect with whoever is there. How many people have really bad taste in partners? And that's, I think, often due to not really being in touch with ourselves or looking for another person to care for our vertical alignment. We need to depend on ourselves for that. And then the right partner can help us amplify that as long as we're suitable partners for each other.
So when we come into this alignment, this vertical alignment, we're starting to tap into our own energy. This is also a great way for us to send that energy out. Then we'll also be maybe attracting the like-minded more people. Maybe manifestation stuff would be coming to us a little bit easier because we'd be clearer. So where do we go from here on any of this energy work, like for our own selves? Like what else do we do with this?
Yeah, and I will back up a little bit. So once you've established what the truth, what your energy feels like, and with the truth lie thing, you don't need to keep doing that once you know. And I don't know that once we're in alignment, we automatically attract someone else. If you're doing this to attract a partner, you're doing it to attract a partner, which is more of a horizontal alignment than you're doing it for yourself so you can be more present in your own life. So it's very important that your intention be on being a clear channel for who you are on a deeper level, a broader level. Another thing that is central to my beliefs is that we're all here as physical manifestations, divine source energy, whatever you want to call it. Everything is a physical manifestation of that. And it's a little hard to be a clear channel for that if we're off running around trying to think about, can I find a boyfriend or girlfriend, or, where's my next, exciting adventure, adrenaline surge coming from?
So this is a good way to just tap into yourselves and know yourself, your authentic self, really. You do that in your session also. You help that person get into their vertical alignment before, or not really?
If that's something that they've expressed an interest in, not really. Although I do have some clients who have been with me since I was back practicing in Charlottesville, Virginia, years and years ago, who will periodically do a remote session with me. I'll book what I call a somatic translation.
Okay, that's a big word.
Somatic translation.
What is it?
It's a session where we just sort of blend everything that I've figured out over the course of my career. So if it's an in-person session, it may involve some hands-on body work. It might involve zero balancing or some, touch therapy. But also it would involve a little bit of name analysis through the Kabbalarian Society, where I'm looking at date of birth and name and the mathematical qualities that manifest in that individual's life. And it will probably involve a little bit of remote heart thread, which is looking for patterns in the body. That work, one of the key focuses is to bridge what the body is holding on to and what the mental body is holding on to, because they're not always on the same page. And as a massage therapist, I see that every day.
And you could do things online.
Yes. And sometimes just if someone is sitting there with one shoulder way up and the other one down, that tells me right away there's something going on with that shoulder. So sometimes I even get some visual, postural cues, that sort of thing. If they say, well, this area hurts, I'll focus in on that remotely. And that's another interesting thing. I talk about it, my hands start buzzing. But I do believe that there are mental, emotional, and spiritual implications that come through in the body as well. Oftentimes, one of the systems that I learned years ago, I don't even recall where I picked it up from, hands are often about creativity. And so where is the creativity being stymied there? Sometimes it's about, making, the inability to form things. I'm sitting here thinking, in my mind, I've got an image of clay, working clay right now. It's interesting. Hypothetical, I'm not as good at just saying, oh, this means this, because it's different for every single person.
But you would be able to kind of tap into that person a little bit.
I would look and see if I can sense any thought forms or emotional holding in the body. Generally, the way that it works with me is I'll just kind of follow that thread, and I don't tend to see what the issue is. It's on the individual to figure it out for themselves, but I endeavor to guide people and look at that. Where is that? Is there a thought form in there? Is there something that your hand thinks? Sometimes I will get a message. The heart thread is notorious for that, where there will be a message and the body perhaps wants the person, a very common one is the body wants the person to know, I don't have to do it all. Our mind is telling us, I have to be everything to everyone, and I have to be this perfect person, taking the kids to school and having, all of that stuff. And the body is like, are you kidding me? I'm worn out. I can't do this. So the body wants to hear, to hear you say, I don't have to do it all, even if you don't believe it. When the person is in the room and I have my hands on their back, I can feel the tissue change when they say that, even if they don't believe it. It's really amazing. That's the real thing about the somatic translation is I am working to have what the body is trying to inform the person of put into their mental body, because we don't speak the same language. The body doesn't speak English, but it understands it. And the body has a different agenda. You're thinking, oh my God, my shoulders are tight. They hurt. I wish that shoulder would stop working. Whereas your shoulder is saying, hey, I'm a trapezius muscle and it's my job to protect the spinal cord. And there's a threat. So I have to tighten up to keep the spinal cord safe. When you're able to let the trapezius muscle know, hey, it's okay. Someone cutting us off in traffic. Yes, I had to slam on the brakes, but it's fine now. It's all right. Then the muscle can, okay, it's all right. I don't have to do this right now.
Very fascinating. We are talking to Alaira Godwin. She is the owner and founder of Body Insight LLC, licensed massage therapist, certified lymphedema therapist, and of course, an energy practitioner all around. And we are talking right now about heart thread.
Was a modality that I learned through Soul Support Systems. It's an organization that I was very involved with for many years and then left 2017. And they're still out there. People can look them up, soulsupportsystems.org. I'm just in a different direction at this phase of my life. So I don't know what they're doing currently with Heart Thread, but it started at a retreat and just organically came, developed out of the course of what that particular group needed. Because we're all wired a little bit differently and we all interact with things a little differently, the pathway to what's going to work is going to be unique for each of us. So one person responds very well to Reiki. One person responds very well to reconnective therapy. Someone responds well to Heart Thread or, modalities that I haven't heard of, modalities that haven't been named yet. And that's another thing is in the world, the level of consciousness that I trust we are shifting away from, the way to really make your money is to come up with a system and patent it and trademark it and sell it. And it's energy. You can't contain it.
That's so good. You're right. You're going to see more and more of those. And I saw them in the last 5 years pop up. I saw a lot of people just saying, oh, this is the way you need to go now. This is it. This is it. And it's really, truly just about what resonates. I always say that, just what resonates really well with you, because what resonates with you doesn't maybe resonate with me, and my body won't respond to it.
Right. I do think that it's important, going back to the vertical alignment we talked about before. is this really resonating with you, or is it resonating with the familiar patterns that you've developed for survival from whatever education, indoctrination, whatever you grew up with? And is it, or was it resonant for you 2 years ago, but now perhaps it's not? So it's like balance. It's a constantly changing, reassess, see how this feels now, and brutal honesty with yourself.
Things that didn't resonate 5 years ago or 3 years ago now resonate more to me now. Like I'm ready for that. Or things that resonated 10 years ago and I was like, oh, this is it. Now I'm like, oh, it doesn't resonate anymore to me. I don't need that. I understand it. I moved on. So I think it's really important to research your energy practitioners, to kind of connect, to make sure you're connected to them, to see if they're authentic for you, because everybody's going to be different.
Agreed. And that's been an interesting thing because my professional standpoint, I'm very, very much a fan of certifications and getting the knowledge and going out there and doing, learning what you need to do, which is, in my opinion, vital as an oncology massage therapist. It's vital as a lymphedema therapist. But with the energy stuff, everything needs a certain level of discernment. But how do you define what's, I called this thing somatic translation because I needed a name for it. It's had many names over the years, and somatic means something. There's somatic experiencing, I think, is something that people go through training for, which I have not done. So am I co-opting their work am I trying to say that I do this work that I don't do? Well, I'm not, but it can look that way. And so, that discernment can be really challenging. Depending on what you're looking for, I think it is important to know someone's background and are you truly comfortable with what they know? My intuitive work is just that. It is very intuitive. It's what I've experienced so far. And a lot of times I'll have a session or two with someone, they'll have some kind of shift, and then they're on to something else, and that's fine. And then other people who've, again, been with me for years, and they'll come back and do a remote session for, just a tune-up or see where they're at. Or
Alaira Godwin, owner of Body Insight LLC, licensed massage therapist, certified lymphedema therapist, energy practitioner. We will take a little break. We'll be right back. Taking ghost stories, 512-722-3266, or email open the eye, just like your eyeball, I, number 13, @gmail.com. Or you can always stream us every Monday night at kwvh.org, 10 p.m. Central Time. I'm in Texas. Got an email from Candy from California. She is streaming. Thank you so much. She writes, I was renting a house for my friend's grandma's lake house in Michigan. It was early November and it was cold. I put the heat up to 75 and had the fireplace going. Really nice and cozy and warm. I started reading a book next to the fireplace. About an hour later, it started getting cold, even by the fire. I checked the thermostat and it said 68, which was odd because I remember putting it at 75. So I put it back up to 75, and about 30 minutes later, it started getting cold again. So I went and checked the thermostat, and it was back down to 68. Thinking that there was maybe a broken thermostat and my friend had not told me about, I got another piece of wood and I put it onto the fireplace. About 30 minutes later, it started getting cold again, even near the fireplace. So I grabbed another small piece of wood and put it back onto the fireplace, and all of a sudden this scream, almost like satanic scream, came from the fireplace, something I've never heard before. Hair on the back of my neck stood up, my stomach dropped, and I felt sick. I looked over at the thermostat and it said 68 again. I called my girlfriend, told her the story, and my friend told me that her grandma always said there was really weird stuff that happened in the house. Thank you, Candy, for the email. Creepy. Okay, so you've got a ghost story. What is it?
I do. I was out at my aunt and uncle's house one summer, and they live out in the country. Not a lot of houses around them. They had a four-wheeler, so we had decided to go out during the day, kind of drive around the land. Down the road from them, there was an abandoned property, and they had told me, we kind of drove by and we looked at it. The floors were all caved in, and definitely a creepy vibe from the house. They had said that there was still an owner, and he would come into town from like Alaska, and he would come in on Memorial Day weekend, and he would camp out on his property and then leave. But he came in every year on Memorial Day weekend. We had gone back to my aunt and uncle's house, and once it had gotten dark, I was like, hey, let's drive, over to that property and see what it looks like at night, because I loved getting spooked out. So we drove back down to the property, and we were on the four-wheeler. We had gone back to the property at night. It was just the four-wheeler light, so you couldn't barely see anything on the property, and we were still on the road. But I kind of got like a weird feeling, and I was like, let's go back to the house. So we flipped the four-wheeler around, and it was my uncle driving, and I was sitting on the back, and I was holding on to him. We were driving kind of slow. I was facing my right side, which on that right side of the road was an entire just field of cut-down trees. So there were just stumps all over the place and like weeds growing in, but it was all just stumps. And this like spooked out feeling in me kind of just like more intense. As I was looking out into that field, there was just a white shadow of a person sprinting through that field. Any person running through that field wouldn't have been able to sprint because there were stumps everywhere. And as I saw that, I like told my uncle, I was like, go faster. So he sped up the four-wheeler, and we were getting close to turning into their driveway, and I could still see this person. I turned to look away, and we were driving, and I could hear how loud the four-wheeler was going. And then all of a sudden, the four-wheeler just went silent. Like, I could not hear anything. Everything was still on. We were still driving, but everything was silent. All I could hear was like a breathing right behind me, like a heavy, just like breathing. And I just heard, close your eyes, do not look back. Held my uncle tight, closed my eyes, and then we finally got to the house, and then it felt like forever, but it was maybe only 10 seconds. And then I could hear the four-wheeler engine going and could hear things again.
Who said close your eyes?
It was just something inside of my head. Do not look behind you.
Told your uncle about it. What did they say?
They said that the land that their property was on, that they had a lot of weird spirits. Like, they were already in tune with what was going on in that area. Oh. There had been a lot of creepy incidences that they had themselves. I was still a lot younger. They didn't share a lot of stories with me.
Did you ever go back out at night?
No. I never went back to that property, actually.
Either. Wow. That's crazy. Thank you so much for your call. I appreciate you so much.
Yes, of course. Thank you.
You're listening to Open the Eye. I'm Tanya Tyler. We're taking your ghost stories tonight. 512-722-3266 or email opentheeye13@gmail.com. According to American Geographical Society, the most haunted states in the U.S., made by the pioneer woman, the number of ghost sightings recorded in each state have been revealed. These are like hot spots to visit, of course, but they're dating back to 1972. These are the number of recorded ghost sightings in these states. Number 1 is Texas, which claims the title of the most haunted state of all, being 7,000 recorded sightings. I'm sure it's way more. Right behind Texas, just barely, is California. Number 3, Ohio. Number 4, Michigan. And number 5, Illinois. This is crazy because the state that has the lowest number of recorded ghost sightings since 1972, Delaware. Wow, right? I would have thought that would have been way up. Other states that may offer some ghost-free is Hawaii and Wyoming. There's nobody that lives in Wyoming, that's why. Vermont and Alaska. Alaska's just got all the UFO stuff. That's where that is. But I would think Virginia where the Civil War was fought. I would think like Oklahoma, some of the Native Americans, but no, that's it. But in Texas, I'm in Wimberley, Texas, and we're right outside Austin. And we've got some crazy stories right in this little area. I've got Shelly Buse, who is a local, and she's got a great story to tell, a ghost that haunts this area and a cafe. So Shelly, who's the ghost? What's his name again?
Walter Babbitts was his name. Bruce and his brother Dave Calkins hired Walter to be the dishwasher at the Cypress Creek Cafe in about 1981. When Walter first walked in and met with Bruce could tell, he was different. He was kind of an odd man, and he was very shy and very small and, just said, yes, sir, no, sir, and wouldn't give full answers to anything. And Bruce kind of picked up on the fact that he was homeless. Bruce offered him the job as the dishwasher, but he also said, hey, man, you can live here if you want. And Walter would either live upstairs when it wasn't occupied, or he'd live under the stairwell in a little closet. I mean, Bruce just really immediately at the onset felt like he had to take care of Walter in some way. But Walter would come and go and come and go. He'd go and hitchhike on these semis, and nobody ever knew where he went. And then one day, Bruce gets a phone call. It was the police in West Texas near Balmaray on I-10 saying that they had found a man who had hit by a semi on the highway, and he only had one piece of paper in his wallet, and it was a business card for the Cypress Creek Cafe in Wimberley, Texas. That's the only thing he had on his body, pretty much. And it broke Bruce's heart. Everybody at the cafe had become fond of Walter, but it was kind of difficult because he was a very hard person to know. Because he never talked about his past, he never talked about anything. Nobody knew anything about him, except Bruce did a little bit. Talked to Walter's sister at some point, and she thanked him for taking such good care of her brother. I mean, Bruce would pay for, hospital bills and whatever. He just felt like he had to help Walter. So anyway, Walter is gone. Bruce is devastated, and shortly after his death, things started to happen at the Cypress Creek Cafe. The radio just randomly, turning itself up, lights flickering, a couple of sightings of Walter going up the stairwell where he often stayed upstairs. Then fast forward to 2010, Trish and Randy Usselton purchased the Cypress Creek Cafe from Bruce and Dave. Bruce told them about Walter and showed him a picture. Said, you have to keep this here. This is Walter. He belongs here. And so they did, and then things were still happening. They weren't really sure that they believed in ghosts, They were changing the point of sale systems, and he had taken all the machines, cash registers and everything, and put them in the back in the bar and put them on the counter. One of them just started going. Click, 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 like running. And he went over there, and the first thing he did was to pick up the plug on the machine and look at it to make sure he wasn't crazy, because it wasn't even plugged in.
No.
Yeah.
Stop it.
Yeah. And then the paper just came out. He said it 30 feet of the whole ream of paper came out. And so then the tech guy comes in a week or so later, and Randy went up to him and said, man, this thing printed out, wasn't even plugged in. And he showed the guy a piece of the paper that he had saved. And the guy's like, dude, that can't happen. So that was Randy's first oh, okay, yeah, he's here. Things started happening. He would throw wine glasses from the back of the bar to the middle of the dance floor. They would go crashing onto the dance floor, and that Walter was laughing his butt off somewhere. I saw it on video because I was working there for a period of time as the office manager. So I never saw myself anything, and I don't really want to. I didn't really want to, but they would say oh, Walter threw another glass last night, and I'd go and check the video. And that's 15, 20 feet. And he would mess with the radio or the music all the time. Somebody also saw him. The guy was closing up the restaurant. He's got most of the doors locked, and he sees this guy walking up the stairs. And he's like, hey, you can't go up there. We're closed. Hey. He never saw the guy again. Trish and Randy were like, what was he wearing? And he had on a plaid shirt and, slacks. And they took him to the photograph of Walter they had on the wall. And he goes, was this him? And he's like, yeah, it was him.
Trippy right there, just to verify. When you were office manager, did you see anything else on the videos?
No, but I mean, I would listen to the employees talk about it all the time. And they all had the joke, Walter, stop it, you know?
Because they all got used to it.
Yeah.
Now, the cafe is no longer.
No, that actually burnt down. I think it was 2016. Now, before it burnt down, Trish and Randy had decided they were renting a house, and then the owner was selling it. So they're like, why are we renting a house when we have the whole upstairs of the Cypress Creek Cafe? And so they were renovating it, and Walter did not like that at all.
Oh, the renovation?
He did not like it.
I've heard ghosts, spirits don't like when you do renovation. They kind of get a little stronger.
Yeah, and it was in his space, It was his pad up there. And he was messing with the tools. He was knocking mirrors over. He was doing all kinds of stuff. I wasn't working there at the time, so I heard this through, the people that work there. Charlie, who did a lot of the renovations, sent me a picture. Kind of weird. You could see like this face, sort of amorphous kind of face in the background. It kind of looks like Walter.
Sounds like Walter had a life where he didn't really have a home. Cypress Creek Cafe was his home.
More his home than any place he had ever been, because like I said, I did a lot of research on him. He was 17 years old when he joined. The war had it was winding down, and he joined the Merchant Marines, and his mother had to sign for him because he was that young. He was a mess, was hitchhiking. He'd lose his papers, his military papers, and getting beaten up all the time. He seemed very alone in this world. You could see why he would want to go back to the cafe. It's where he was appreciated. It's where he was loved. It was where he could rest, from this world.
I know that you've told this story many times, and you've also done a radio piece on this. So thank you for sharing that light for others, knew him or just wanted to know this story. As he looks down or feels this energy, we hope that he has some love in his heart. Yay. So Shelley, I want to say thank you so much. Thank you so much for all the work you did on him. And Walter, wherever you are, peace may be with you.
Exactly.
All right, Tate, you got a ghost story. What is it?
Hey, my name's Tate Mayu from the band Mayu and Broussard. But usually as I'm a singer and performer, today I got a ghost story for you. We were, during the pandemic, a kid from Leander, Texas. I ended up somehow getting coerced into moving to Connecticut, which I was never really a big ghost believer. But when I moved to Connecticut, everything's real old. Everything's built in the 1800s. And so the very first house we lived on was right on the beach, on the water, on the Long Island Sound. And it had originally been built by an old ship captain, an old fisherman, and him and his daughter lived there forever and ever. Whenever I moved into the house, the previous tenants had told me, hey, there's a little girl, there's a ghost that runs around. And I was kind of like, oh, okay, sure. One day, not too long after I moved there, I'm sitting there in the middle of the day making myself a sandwich, and all of a sudden I hear ba 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 ba, and I can hear footsteps running up and down the stairs, even though I knew I was the only person in the house. And it freaked me out, and I just left my sandwich and got in the car and hit the road. But a few days later, I was there with the previous tenants, and we start hearing the footsteps again running up and down, and my buddy Mike yells, "Cut it out!" And all of a sudden the footsteps just stopped, which once again freaked me out. And I only lived there for about 2 or 3 months, and that was that.
But you're a ghost believer now, aren't you?
Yeah, that was weird to me too.
Thanks, Tate. Where can we find more information out on your band?
You can check us out at www.mbtxmusic.com.
We're taking your ghost stories tonight, 512-722-3266, or email opentheye13@gmail.com. Thanks for your call. What is your story?
I don't consider my experiences ghost stories, really. To me, they were just my loved ones telling me goodbye.
Oh, I love that. Okay, so not ghost stories.
The first time I can remember ever experiencing anything was in 1980 when my grandmother died, and we were extremely close. And I got a phone call late one night that she had passed away. And when I did go to bed, I was just lying there thinking, about her. And every kitchen cabinet door slammed, one after the other. And there was nobody else up in the house. It was just me and my husband. We were in bed. So I always considered that her way of saying, I'm gone.
When you went to bed, you had already known that she had passed, and you were thinking of her.
I did, and I was just thinking about her. And the fact that she was gone, that's when I heard it. I don't know if that qualifies as anything.
It always
or not.
qualifies. No, this is the spirit realm connecting to you. Did you go and investigate?
No, I didn't. I just kind of knew, I think. You know, in my heart, I felt like that was her and that she was okay. I don't know why I felt that or thought that. Very mysterious. And then in 1984, my dad passed away. And I was there when he passed. And I had a jewelry box that he had given me that when you opened the bottom drawer, a song would play. Once again, I'm lying in bed. Everything, had happened that day. That jewelry box started playing that tune.
You heard that jewelry box playing?
I heard it, yes. And it was the same feeling. It was this sense of that he was gone and that he was okay. And it was very much the same feeling as I felt before.
The spirit realm does connect with us, and a confirmation again, I'm okay. I'm here.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing.
I was a little apprehensive about sharing, but it happened.
Yeah.
So I don't feel funny talking about it, really. I think the hardest one for me, my daughter, who was my youngest child, and she was 30 at the time, was killed by a drunk driver.
I'm so sorry.
And that was hard. So that happened at 2:30 on a Saturday morning, and we found out about it about 7:30. The police knocked on our door and told us. And I was very much in a state of disbelief. I called the police department and spoke to the detective who was in charge of it to get confirmation. Just a series of visitors and phone calls and everything all through that Saturday. Sunday morning, I had fallen asleep somewhat. I didn't sleep very much Saturday night, and I was on the sofa. My phone was plugged in on a table nearby, and it rang very early. I think it was about 6 o'clock. And I was a little confused because nobody ever calls that early. When I answered the phone, it was very staticky, which you don't really hear static much on a cell phone. And it was very staticky, and I heard my daughter's voice say, "Mama, Mama." Before I could really respond other than hello, the call cut off.
Wow. Oh my gosh, I'm getting chills right now.
It was, I didn't tell anybody about it for a long, long time because it was such a personal thing.
Yeah.
And what bothered me about it is she sounded so lost and scared because I know she was, jerked out of her body very suddenly. I felt very powerless in that I could not help her or respond to her calls for help.
Mm-hmm.
And I still feel that way. I worry about it, that I wasn't able to talk to her. I felt her presence with me for years.
Yeah.
In the last year and a half, I have kind of settled into my own space, and I felt like she had finally passed on because I didn't need her presence so much anymore.
Because you were healing.
Yeah, I was finally beginning to heal. And that phone call was horrifying and wonderful at the same time.
Wow.
Because I thought I'd never hear her voice again, but I did.
It's amazing how the spirit realm connects to us and how they do it.
Yeah.
And I want to say thank you so much for this call, and thank you so much for being so strong.
It's taken me a long time to be able to share that, and it still makes me cry to think about it.
Well, I don't want to make you cry. I send you lots of love. Thank you so much. I truly appreciate this phone call.
Thank you, Tanya.
This is Open the Eye. I'm Tanya Tyler. Always stream every Monday night, 10 p.m. Central, Texas time, on kwvh.org, 512-722-3266, or email opentheeye13@gmail.com. Mike from Arizona emails. He writes, "My friend Tony and I have known each other since college. I'm in my 60s. We always played pranks on each other. The day Tony told me he was terminally ill and only had 3 months to live was last year. My life had changed. I told him I would call him every day when I heard the news. My wife and I had our wedding anniversary. We were jam-packed with events. I didn't get a chance to call Tony. So the next morning after my anniversary, I called him in the morning. And he sounded amazing. He sounded like he did when he was in his 20s. We told some jokes like we normally did, and I told him I would call him tomorrow. And he started laughing. We hung up the phone. That night, I got a call from his wife to let me know that Tony had passed the morning of my wedding anniversary, which was the day before I had talked to him. She had told me that she didn't want to call me on my anniversary and interrupt all the plans that we had since it was such a big wedding anniversary. I was slightly confused. He had passed that morning before. Then I realized the laugh that he had given me at the end of our call was him getting the last laugh out of our pranks. I had never told anybody this story. It was just too far out there. Oh, that's trippy, Mike. I've never heard that one. Having a full conversation with the spirit realm, very similar to Becky's earlier. Spirit realm is just a few vibrations away. If we lift our vibration high enough, we can connect. And remember your dreams. Easy for them to connect to you in your dreams because we're less stressed out. We're less human. Well, thank you so much for being part of the show and listening to the show. I am Tanya Tyler. This is Open the Eye every Monday night. Stream us on kwvh.org. Just listen live. Until next time.